Alors, bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this regular and public meeting of the Dieppe City Council on March the 14th. No special announcement to be made, but for the opening word on item number 2, dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, the wisdom to know the difference. The meeting is called to order. Manager, do we have a quorum? Everyone is here tonight. We even have visits. That's after 2 years of COVID and Zoom and all these things. It's a pleasure to see people in the room. So, conflict of interest. Do we have any members that would have conflict of interest? Monsieur Lantin, 11.1 to 11.4. 11.1 to 11.4. He's declaring conflict of interest on these.
Vous avez bien dit de 11.1
You
à
said from 11.1 to 11.4. Okay.
C'est bien, c'est noté.
It's noted.
Alors, maintenant, pour l'adoption
Now,
de l'ordre du
for the
jour,
adoption of the agenda, Your Worship, we would like to add to 10.1.2 a financial contribution to the Eucarium case. 10.1.2.1.
OK. Merci.
Thank you.
On en a déjà fait la proposition.
We've already made a motion. Not yet.
On va prendre une résolution
We'll need a motion from council, moved by Councillor
Thibodeau, pardon,
Thibodeau,
puis
seconded by
permettre
Councillor
qu'on
Gadet,
ajoute
that we
le
add
thème
item
10.1.2.
10.1.2.
Qui sont en faveur de la résolution,
All
s'il vous
those in
plaît.
favor of the resolution say aye.
Contraire dirait non.
Contrary minded say nay.
La résolution est adoptée telle que présentée.
Motion carried as presented. We'll add 10.1.2 concerning
La situation en Ukraine.
the situation in
Maintenant, pour
Ukraine. Now, for
amener
to bring us
au prochain item,
to the next item,
qui est la demande
that is
renseignement
inquiries
envers les membres
by council members for a member of the Kodiak Regional SCMP.
nous avons le
For
sergent
tonight, we have Sergeant
Mario Fortin
Mario Fortin,
qui est avec nous
who is with
par
us,
téléphone.
probably on the phone. Yes, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Sergeant, Staff Sergeant Fortin. You've received what we call the Grand Stat.
Non.
No, it was not sent to you. What we send every week normally, that gives an idea of the statistics. No, it's not something that we normally receive.
On reçoit certainement un peu
We
d'informations
certainly received some information during the presentation by your colleague, by your boss. Well, I'm not sure what you receive every week.
qu'on parle un petit peu des bons coups puis des
Well, we talk about the good actions and the bad ones. Good actions depends which side you're on. We've had the traffic team from the division, the province, that on March 14th they came for a visit and it was quite productive. Those who they visited the three municipalities, but it was quite productive, really. Either for a vehicle without insurance and things like that. So it had quite an impact on the community. And also with the traffic committee, it was a reference for the light at the corner of Champlain, Rue du Marché and Notre Dame, Market Street. and we've started to pay a special attention to that corner because we were told that there were quite a few red lights that were burned, or meaning that cars drove through red lights.
Alors, merci pour cette information.
Thank you for that
Est-ce
information.
qu'au niveau du conseil municipal, il y a
Now,
des
for the
gens qui souhaitent
municipal
intervenir
council, would
ou
any
ça va
members
aller
have
comme avant?
questions for the sergeant?
Monsieur Brideau.
Mr.
Monsieur le
Brideau,
Président,
your
Monsieur
worship,
Fortin,
Monsieur
euh,
Flotta,
j'aimerais de savoir, est-ce que vous
I
pouvez
would
me
like
donner
to know, can you give
des
us
chiffres, parce que
some
vous parlez
figures when you
de
talk about
projet qui s'est passé
a
en
project that
masse dans les trois
happened on
communautés,
March the 4th in the three
dans
communities?
les arrestations
I
que vous faites,
imagine
question
the
de
arrests that
téléphone
you
mobile, les gens
made
sur le
their
téléphone mobile
mobile
passer
vehicles
des,
driving
des feux
while
rouges,
they
des
were
trucs là. Est-ce que
driving
ça,
and
vous
to
avez
go
des
through
chiffres
red lights. Do you have
précis?
figures to give us? I don't have the exact detailed figures for each municipality. I have the total in one day. But however, I don't have the breakdown. But we've had 88 tickets that were given, ticket wise. There were 10 warnings. We had a car towed, and we had a driver who was suspended, and another one had a warrant for his arrest. So, idiot, at least 100 contact that brought that had an impact, but I don't have the exact figures as to how many had their cells were listening and how many went through a red light and
Merci, ça paraît
whatnot. Thank you, Mr.
satisfaisant.
Lotin.
C'est quand même une
Well,
alerte à la population.
it's a
On sait que vous êtes
warning
sur
for the
l'échelle,
population.
puis
We know you're on the
les
road,
infractions sont
and
puniables.
yes,
Alors, j'espère
infractions
que
are
les gens
punishables.
s'ajusterent
So
au
for
niveau de ces
speeding,
choses-là.
noise,
Merci.
everything else. Thank you.
Merci.
So
Merci.
that's why I wanted to mention the red light. At the same time, we know that the people are watching or listening to city council. So when the lights turn yellow, it's to warn and get ready for the red light.
Merci.
Thank
La
you.
prochaine, Madame
Next,
Fortin.
Mrs. Gadbu.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Your
Monsieur
Worship.
Fortin, je voulais poursuivre avec
Chief
la
Wata,
demande
I want to
faite
follow up to
la
requests
concernant
that were made in the
les feux de
past
circulation devant l'école Mathieu
about
Martin.
the
Est-ce que
traffic
vous êtes au
lights
courant
in
si
front of
des
Manu
choses ont été
Martin. Are
effectuées à
you
cet
aware
endroit?
if something was done in that regard? I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if it was mentioned at the last meeting. I don't see it in the notes. I can check if you wish. You're talking about something, Inspector Jeanette, when he comes back from holidays. You say in front of Manu Martin, the traffic
Oui,
light in front of Manu
seulement
Martin?
l'intervention de l'auditeur.
Yes,
Merci.
it can wait until he comes back. Thank you.
OK. Merci. Je pensais que
Thank you.
peut-être vous étiez pour écouter
I thought maybe you wanted to
la
add
difficulté puis le
the
danger qui est créé
difficulty
par
and the
la
danger that is
circulation
created by
et
the
les gens qui ont
traffic
tendance à arrêter
and the
devant notre
people that have
place.
a tendency to
Oui,
stop
ça,
at the wrong
oui,
place. Well,
c'est
that's
que
the
la
issue.
circulation est
It's
perturbée
not
présentement.
only
On ne
the
sait pas s'il y a une entrée ou une
traffic
sortie.
is
Quand on est sorti de Manu Martin, ils
disturbed,
ne l'ont pas
but it's
vu.
a
Ils ont
restaurant
tendance
in
à
front of
dévier l'endroit,
Panjimatan, not a street. They have a
directement vers le
tendency to
restaurant, puis
turn
aller tout droit vers Mathieu Martin.
around and
Ensuite,
go
la
straight to
circulation
Panjimatan, but
le
block
feu de
the
circulation,
traffic
ça crée des embouteillages
or the
importants,
traffic.
ça
So
crée des
it
délais
it
aux
creates
gens qui veulent
problems in the morning for
travailler
people
là-bas.
who are
Alors,
trying to bring their
c'est ça va
children to the
améliorer
school.
pour
So
les
we
gens qui
hope
vont
it will be
utiliser
clear and people
les
will
routes
respect
présentement.
more
Merci.
the code of the road. There'll be a follow up on that to see
Merci.
uh, what is
Merci
happening.
bien.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Je vois pas d'autres
I don't see any
collègues ni rien
anyone else
ici.
with their hands up.
Alors, merci
So
pour
thank
votre
you
présence
for your
en
presence,
direct et au
a
plaisir de vous
virtual
voir.
presence, and the pleasure to see you again. I imagine the next meeting will be in person.
C'est bien. Ça nous fera
Thank
plaisir de
you.
vous
Very
revoir.
well. We'll be happy to see you.
À bientôt.
See you soon.
OK. Alors, maintenant,
Okay, now
prochaine discussion,
next
séance
discussion,
publique.
public hearing,
Euh, 7.2.
7.2,
Monsieur Melançon.
Monsieur Melançon.
7.1, on parle,
Oh,
7.1,
excusez-moi.
Monsieur Fenel va faire une
Se-
présentation de l'Alliance.
OK.
Monsieur Fred will make a
Je sais qu'il y a
presentation
beaucoup de gens
the public hearing. A lot of people are here for the issue of the cut of grass. We asked Monsieur Frenette, responsible for the planning and development of different properties, and he will maybe make an update of where we are. We've all been shocked or bothered almost a year, not quite a year, less than that, maybe more like 6 to 8 months, with the major tree cutting that happened in the development property on the street, on Central Street, continuation of Thomas on Central Street, and we've already started to pay attention to that file. So, Monsieur Frenet, good evening and welcome, and maybe an update of the file. Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, public. So, before I go to my public hearing, just to give an account of where we're at with the consultant, it was already something that the intention the council had for its intention on to modify the regulation as to what is the tree cutting on private property. As it was mentioned, it accelerated with what happened, among others, on Central Street, because there's other places. We talk a lot about Central Street, but there's other places on the territory of the municipality. So we gave a contract to a consultant, uh, technologies on the urban living. He has a lot of experience in where we're at right now. Mr. Chiquan made some proposals to the council during a public meeting, and really there are three proposals that he's proposing to the council. The first one is really any new construction would be to impose the plantation of a tree on the frontage of the property. This is for a new construction. We noticed that people who are present here, you can notice that all over the territory of Dieppe, it's not everyone that has a tree on their frontage or even on their property. Some property in Dieppe doesn't necessarily have a tree planted. It's a private choice. Legally speaking, for us, it's easier to impose trees on a new property that is vacant following the issuing of a building permit. But when there's no trees, the best technique would be the promotion of trying to encourage the people to plant trees. So the first recommendation is any new construction or new property should have the plantation of a tree. We're aware, conscientious that we have to cut trees. When we develop a street, we have to cut trees, but it's a matter of having a happy medium, a selective cutting rather than a clear cutting. The second recommendation is the obtention of a certificate or a license to cut a tree on private property. Each resident of the city of Dieppe who intends to cut a tree on its property must previously obtain a license or some certification that shows that yes, there is a valid reason to cut the tree, either a disease, either the tree is too old, the life cycle has been attained, either there's a possibility of a danger that the tree will fall on the proper on the neighbor. Sometimes it can be a hazard for public visibility. When we're at an intersection, we have small trees that make it such for security, public security. It has an impact, so we have the possibility of cutting it ourselves. But if it's to cut a tree, if someone wants to implement or to have a swimming pool or a baby barn, sorry, baby barn, previously would be to show that is the best location to put the swimming pool or the baby barn if there's no reason to show the dependency elsewhere. Well, there will be a possibility with the obtention of a certificate to plant a tree, to cut the tree. But if there's no valid reason to cut the tree, it could be Monsieur Chiquin explain it. If it creates a shadow or we are picking up the leaves on the property, that's a discussion we'll have. It will have to be debated. Do we allow these people to cut a tree? That is good help. As we explained, in spite of the fact that the tree is on the private property, it has something to do with the well-being of the property. We know that the influence that a tree can have, both environment, and finally, I would say the first two recommendations are for individuals, while the third recommendation or proposal from Benoit Chiquan is the development of a subdivision project to create lot and develop some residential. It is to obtain or to make a story uh, about trees. Before you cut a tree in the subdivision, the developer will have to supply with experts, uh, there again, technologists and forestry or firm of landscaping architecturalists to show the type of what we have on the property, the trees that can be preserved, and other trees that may be less apt to survive or less important. These, it would be possible to cut them. But there again, by proposing the project as such, we can have that study. And if it's agreed that we can, if we are able to dislocate or to change the tree or to have new pocket of trees that we could preserve, it would be beneficial. So these are the three recommendations that Monsieur Chiquan was proposing based on several cities in Quebec and the Maritimes. And there, following that recommendation, the council asked, it was also the intention in the order of service to consult the population. Uh, the survey was published in the new web platform of the municipal council of the municipality, and people had between January 17th, February the 2nd to answer some questions. There was a total of 10 questions. We received quite a bit of answers, and the results will be presented to the municipal council on the 21st of March. Really, we have the statistics, we have the charts, and we will ask if the people were ready to get a certificate or a permit. There were 50-50. It's not everybody that was in favor or everybody that was against. The same thing with the study on the trees. If they were in favor and to plant trees on vacant property. 10 questions. There were some that was in relation with the question of the consultants or the recommendations, no, rather the comments received will be presented during the meeting of March the 21st, following which the council will have to take a position in the development of a bylaw in relations with urban forestry on private property. Thank you, Monsieur, for that.
J'aimerais maintenant peut-être passer le micro
Now, maybe I give the mic
aux citoyens s'il y en a qui
to the
ont souhaité
citizens if
s'exprimer
some
sur
people
le
want to
sujet.
express on
Si vous
the
n'avez
issue.
pas eu la chance de le
Maybe
faire
you didn't have the opportunity to
sur
do
le
it
site de la municipalité
on the site
et
of
ou
the
si vous avez
municipality,
d'autres
or if you
questions
have other questions,
commentaires sur le
comments
sujet
on the
de la
issue
direction
of
que
uh,
le conseil a
the
prise
directions that was taken by the council
des
on
questions
this file,
concernant
or
le
rather
développement
questions concerning the
et la
development
protection
and the
municipale.
protection of the
On va essayer
trees.
de trouver l'équilibre
Try to find a
possible
balance,
entre
a possible
euh,
balance between what has been happening for years now and what we must correct to improve the situation, the green the green estate for our community. If someone, you may come forward to the mic. Don't fight, don't fight, don't fight. There's room for everyone. Identify yourself.
That's okay.
Kind of in an airplane jumping out without a parachute here. So I moved into Dieppe, my girlfriend and I, in October.
Your name, please?
Oh, yes, sorry. Richard Todd Holman.
Okay.
I live at 98 Tranquille.
Okay.
And I moved into Dieppe with my girlfriend in October and was shocked when trees started coming down behind my property. Shocked in this day and age when we're talking about environmentally friendliness, we're talking about carbon footprints. Like, these are not new terms. Yeah, I was shocked that a progressive town like this would allow something to happen. So I started making some inquiries and was told that this was a decision made by council 20 years ago. So no one here was here 20 years ago. And I keep hearing over and over, we can't do anything. It's what was decided. Some guy back 20 years ago decided it. And my question is, why can't we do anything? Nobody in this room wants this. Nobody. I can guarantee if we came to a vote today, everybody would have serious questions. And I apologize, your name. Yeah. So here's someone doing something about it, and we're all wanting to do something about it. But we can't keep saying because there was a mistake made 20 years ago, we can't do anything about it. We can't keep saying that. And this is not just this issue, it's all issues. So I put up a poster along that trail, and in 3 days, I got 10 emails from people.
Can you speak in the microphone, please?
Yes.
I know. Sorry, but it's just for the record.
A little nervous, sorry guys.
It's okay.
It's a little intimidating. Sorry. So I got 10 emails in that short period of time. What spurred me on was there was a girl in our community, maybe 10, 11, who wrote a letter. Her native language is not French. Her native language is Spanish. She wrote a letter in French, hung it from a tree, basically begging the people cutting the trees down to not do it. And when I saw that letter, I said, oh my gosh, Todd, like, you got to try to do something. Like, so I put those signs up, and I got all kinds of inquiries from citizens. And, you know, I think we would all like to see this put on hold, have a second look at it, talk to the developer, and see if we can turn back the times on this a bit. Barring that, I think we really need to seriously look at how can we help this trail? Because when those trees that have already been cut are gone, they're going to keep cutting into the private property of the developer. There's going to be like nothing left except houses. So I guess my question to council, is there anything that you guys can do to turn back the time on this? Is there anything?
Local reporter.
Oh,
So, yeah, I don't know if you had the translation device for during the presentation by Mr. Frenette.
yes.
That's, I mean, what we were, yeah, I think everybody was shocked in at the initial event, but legally there's very little that we could do. So we're now trying to arm ourselves, if I can use that expression, to be able to change the future. The past is the past. Obviously, there's some things also that, as was mentioned, that we can do for the future is start planting more trees and encourage citizens to to plant more trees as well. So that's kind of where we are at this point in time. Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about planting more trees, what does that look like?
Well, that we don't know as of yet. I know we've, for this year, have changed some of the budgets and increase. We have one arborist that works for us now, and I know that we're in the process of recruiting a second one. And what that's going to look like is we've already had a number of initiatives to encourage people to plant trees on their properties. Everything from, when a newborn comes along, that you plant a tree and name, and those are trees that are, they're not starters. They're healthy size to get started. And that's just one initiative. There's a number of other initiatives where we want to continue. We've worked with a number of federal organizations to plant trees in various parts of our community over the decades, but those that get cut get a lot more airtime than those that are planted. So that's for obvious reasons, right? So that's where we're at.
Thank you. How many people are here on this issue tonight? I'm just going to read a letter here. It really speaks to a lot of the letters I received. I'm not going to mention names. Is it okay if I read that?
No, don't need the names.
No. I found your notice on a tree. Thank you for putting energy into this matter. I am a retired RCMP member diagnosed with PTSD. A very important part of my therapy and mental health is the daily walking of my two little dogs. Sorry, it's making me a little emotional. I have enjoyed and benefited from the walking trails more than I can articulate in this email. To say that they have been life-saving is not much of an exaggeration. Recently, I discovered the clearing of treed area next to the path I regularly walk. The stress has caused me was significant. The anger was of the type that is symptomatic of my PTSD. The goddamn clearing of those trees really pissed me off. I almost took it up with the tree harvester operator who was working at the time, but of course, he's the last guy to consult with. Many people enjoy these paths. I pass regulars all the time. These paths add tremendous value to this community, not the least of which being financial. Whoever is responsible for allowing all these trees to be cleared just doesn't get it. No doubt I'm preaching to the choir now, as I'm sure you get it. Seems too damn late, the trees have been cut down. And then he says, effers. So that is just a sample of the anger and sadness. It made me emotional because here's a man who's dedicated, I mean, I don't know him, never met him. Mm-hmm. I know he's a man because of his name, but he's dedicated his life to service his country, and that is a therapy for him. And this is very upsetting to him. My girlfriend cries over it when she sees that. So I could read more. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to say, but I implore council to do whatever is within your power. I know you say we can't do nothing, we can't do anything, but could you sit down with the developer and say, listen, develop the rest of your property, and when that's done, come back to the trail. I've talked to the developer. He seems very reasonable. I know he's in it to make money, but I know he's not also in it to hurt people either. Anyways, anyone else want to say anything? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Je m'appelle Gabriela Fischer.
Good
J'habite sur...
evening, I'm Gabriela Fischer and I live on Vanier Street. I walk on the trail each day sometimes many times.
Je rencontre
I
toujours
know that I always meet wonderful people, and we all know each other.
tout le monde que je rencontre
And everybody I
dans le
meet,
sentier, ils
we
tous
talk about the trail, and everybody is shocked.
je voudrais remercier d'abord.
And I would like to thank
I would like to thank you. I would like to thank you for
with
what you're doing tonight. I think that's an important thing, and many thanks. And yes, I think it is so. Nobody disputes how important it is to preserve our environment. Et c'est tellement important ça. C'était
it's very important, and it's a value for our community to have this trail and to have it in the middle of the forest, surrounded by trees. We walk there because it's in the forest. We don't walk on the street, on the sidewalks. And after a storm, they always take the days away from the trail first because we're always there. It's our forest, and it's a loss for us. I can't believe that we can do nothing. It's not possible to say we can't do anything. It's not true. We can do things. We did things for the Pettit We reestablished it. We can do things in our community and in our environment. It belongs to the community. I think we should create an alliance to save the trail. And I'm ready to plant trees if I must. Everybody knows that further along the trail, when it turns a bit, I see trees that didn't grow there, that were planted to make the trail prettier. We should be able to do that. We should be able to replant on that trail. If the developer is ready, I'm ready to do it. I hope they will help us. And I would like to ask as well if we could have a bylaw that would limit, that would protect the trails like that. Other trails are not far, and they go towards the arena on the other side of Vanier Street. And we have trees on both sides. And the properties are a little further, so they left a little forest corridor between the trees. And it should be possible to have a law that would establish these types of corridors, a minimum of 3 meters of forest to be preserved for new developments beside the trails that exist already. They were there before the development. If anybody wants to work on that with me, I'm ready. Thank you for your intervention. Like it was mentioned by Mr. Frenet, we're on the right path to give ourselves the necessary tools so that this type of development will not happen again in our community. Good evening. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. I'm Madame Laplante on Grande Vallée, and I would like to thank Todd for his initiative to call people to come here tonight to protect the trees. Firstly, I'm not against to enlarge the city of Dieppe, and I understand the position of the developer, but I was upset to see the clear cutting on Central Street, but with explanations, we can understand that developers, for personal reasons, need to cut the trees for building permits. But what I do not understand is why they are cutting along the trail. It's still clear cutting, and there's no reason for that because there's no construction there where they're cutting. It's true as well I hear there are plans, the city, the council has plans. And with these recommendations, I heard tonight, two of them seem to put the responsibility upon residents, individuals to plant trees. If the developers are cutting them, then they should be responsible to replant some. So if the developers are clear cutting to build, then they should have a permit saying that if you cut X number of trees, you'll have to plant X number. And the other point is that the trees that they were cut along the trail, they're not small trees that we will plant today that will grow in 10, 15, 20 years. Where we live right now, when we built the house, we planted trees. They were already mature at that time. It's been 15 years and they're still not in a state of the ones they cut along the trail. I know it's too late now for the trail behind Takil and Value because they already cut the trees. But I hope that procedures that we're putting into place now will protect other trails, other areas in the city of Dieppe. But in Mr. Frenette's report, I'd like to know what are the time frames. You hired somebody, yes, we have recommendations. How long will it take before the March 21st meeting where they're going to give the report? But that period for construction in the spring has already started and they're going to cut a lot more trees. So I hope we could have an injunction in the meantime before we receive the report and have a municipal bylaw put into place saying that if we build in the city of Dieppe and you cut trees, you also have to plant other trees to replace them. And they have to be mature trees, not small ones that take 50 years to grow. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, councillors, administration, Paul Béliveau, and I live on Isabelle. On Central that we have discussed, my partner and I use that trail regularly. I was told that there would be an installation of pipes at the back of the property where the trees were cut on Tranquille Street. I wanted to know if that is the case. What is there now? Are they going to install pipes? Usually, you don't put trees on top of pipes because you don't know what will happen. So I wanted to know if what I heard is true. All those pipes that the developer will install, will it be done as usual on the streets or in front of the house and not against the back of the property? So beside the trail itself. Can we get this information? Can somebody give me answers? Have those plans been accepted, studied, what was proposed? And where are we at now? I don't know if we have an answer to that tonight, Mrs. Spencer. Good. Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know if any pipes will be placed in the back of the back of the properties. Usually it's on the side of the street, but we need a servitude to connect them, but it wouldn't be in the back of the lots. No, that's positive. So they shouldn't have anything else there. Inaudible. No mic, the interpreter can't hear. However, often we have draining places behind the properties, canals, draining. That's different. Perhaps if we plant trees, we hope that they'll grow. As well, I wanted to ask you if there will be a linking trail attached to the trail that will go up to Tranquille right now. We wanted this type of link in the future for this project. So we will have space for the trail that would link to the original trail on Tranquille. Is that going to go ahead with the development? I don't know if Mr. Book has the answer. He's on Zoom. Mr. Book, do you have an answer? Good evening. No, I don't have the answer for that. I can check tomorrow and come back to council. When it was developed or proposed that plan, it was one thing that was requested, and the developer said yes, it would be done. So I just wanted you to know that at the time we had an affirmative answer. You're saying there are no pipes, so we should be able to plant more trees, but it's a shock. I run a lot with my eyes closed, but when I opened them, I didn't know where I was. I thought I was lost. If you want to continue this work and with Ms. Frenette's information tonight, I think it's very important that it should be done sooner rather than later. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors. My name is Chris Vinikak. I live on Nugent Street. I welcome the opportunity to address this council.
Just a second, quelqu'un pourrait monter le microphone? Just want to raise the microphone so you,
I can do that.
there you go.
We'll raise the microphone.
Did you hear my previous
no, but
remark?
just wanted to make sure, that's all.
I was attracted to Dieppe a number of years ago. I immigrated to Canada from South Africa in 2001, living initially in Newfoundland in Cornerbrook. And then when I planned on retiring, I was a general surgeon. Dieppe was very attractive to me, one, because my daughter was living here, but secondly, because of the multicultural nature of this area, the French and the English, although I'm not French speaking. I grew up in a multicultural society and I appreciate diversity. I also think you should value your environment. Dieppe is a beautiful town, beautiful city, but it will not remain so unless due regard is taken for what previous speakers have mentioned. Laws are made quite easily. Laws are put in place and developers and future developers abide by them. There's no need to appeal for common sense. Common sense should be there. We are very aware of a green environment. And those politicians who've not paid heed to the green movement best wake up, because the green movement is here. And your future, your posts are all dependent upon voter turnout. And if enough people are mobilized, as is happening here this evening, things will change. I'm not in any way threatening, I'm just saying what is happening in modern society. I do appreciate, though, the efforts that Dieppe has made in the past. I've been involved in online discussions, in bike trails, public transport, potential use and development of buildings. So all of my experience in this city has been very, very positive. But for the city to remain attractive, it must be more helpful to citizens in the tree planting program. I, for one, on Nugent, I believe I'm the only person who's taken advantage of that tree planting initiative. I've spoken to neighbors. Well, digging a 3-meter hole is a bit of a hassle, especially if you're a young woman. I've offered to help neighbors. My neighbor next door is a gym instructor, so I didn't offer to help him. But nonetheless, people have not taken advantage, and maybe the offer should be amended that the hole is dug for the citizen by the able-bodied men in the works department. because then I'm sure many more people would take advantage of these offers. I won't keep the floor any longer. I very much enjoy living in this environment. I enjoy Dieppe for the trails that my previous speakers have mentioned. They form part of my daily existence. And if it were not for that, I probably would have looked elsewhere to go and live in a condo in Halifax. But those trails aren't immediately available. What makes Dieppe such a wonderful city is the fact you can walk from your home to your place of physical exercise and entertainment. Don't take it away from us, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Je vais baisser le micro. Bonjour, c'est Guy Doucette.
I'm
J'habite.
Guy Doucette. I live at the bottom of Central near Melançon. This is concerning the construction on Melançon for NB housing, I believe. Oh, that's the next file. I just wanted you to know that if anybody else wants to talk about this, about the trees, because we're starting another file that is coming right after this one. And I just wanted to ensure that everybody has a chance to participate in this discussion.
Piping system, who would I talk to?
On the which?
The pipe running beside the
On arrière des boîtes.
Oh, okay.
So we can, we can take your information and contact you.
I'll give you like my name.
Mr. Mayor, usually we
I'll
have
write
a drainage plan that is approved by
Right.
our department, so.
Yeah. That should be at this point readily available.
Just maybe two information, if I may, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
So one thing is also that we should have mentioned, Andre, is that we're consulting a developer as we speak now. So we want to make sure that we have the comments and observation from all parties. So the developers are an important partnership to this element. And also the bylaw should be brought to council sometimes in April. So after the consultant brings this report and recommendation, council will be in a position to consider a bylaw and which element would be part of it. That is council to decide when we bring it forward. We will be certainly recommending some elements, but just to give you a timeline, because that question was asked from, I think, the lady, when it was going to be brought to council. So sometimes in April should be at the agenda.
OK. On a fini avec les arbres pour le
So
moment.
we finish with the trees for the time being. Yes, no, last chance. Next item concerning public hearing. Mr. Frenet is going to take the mic again. Good evening again. This evening, Your Worship, councillors and the public, we have a public hearing for a project for a bylaw, zoning bylaw for conditional use on Melançon Road. And I'll explain a conditional use respecting the planning act. The council can put any conditions pertinent for the development. For the presentation plan, the first slide shows you the critical dates and for the scheduling as well. And I'm going to talk about the conditional use respecting the section of the act. So for the times, we had 14th on the February where we started the processes of amendment of the municipal plan and zoning bylaw. And this evening, we have the public hearing of the projects on March 16th. We will go to the PRAC for recommendations to ensure that the project follows the intention of the municipal plan and bylaw. And on March 28th, the council may decide to accept the recommendations of the member of the PRAC by adding conditions or accepting it as presented or refuse it, but by adding conditions. Usage is allowed in the bylaw, but we can make conditions. The site, as you can see here in this map, in the red square, that's the lot that was identified for construction in the future of a multifamily housing unit of 10 units. Here is the region, the sector. Here it is in gravel. The municipality, when they build streets on Melanson or Centrale, we're using it to store certain equipment. It belongs to the municipality. Another photo here, that's from Google View, of what the lot looks like. And here we have the site plan when it's superimposed on an aerial photo. The site plan, as you can see, the building on the west side with a buffer zone on the east. So here we have an aerial view again, and you can see the trees and a buffer zone, as we mentioned. It's proposed for conservation. So you can see this on the site plan. Here's what the building would look like, its footprint and dimensions, where it's situated. Excuse me, could you please have your discussions outside because the presenter is being disturbed? We would like to proceed with our meeting. Thank you. So we have sketches of the building, what it will look like. There are 10 units, 5 are along Melanson and 5 in the back. It's a one-story building comparable to of the height that we have in the sector already in Melanson. It's just beside the AGL arena. This completes my presentation this evening for the public hearing for the proposed building. We've also received comments, and tonight it's a legal mechanism for people to give us their comments, objections, or approval for this project. And we have received some objections, so we'll proceed with the objections received. And if anybody in the audience wants to talk about it, so to start with Mr. Veloso, we received 4 letters on the public hearing. Firstly,
My name is Louise Landry and I live at 629 Melanson Road. I received this letter in the mail last week and it has me very concerned. We, as our neighbors, have been inconvenienced in the past several years by the dumping and use of this site directly across the street from us by several contractors, causing noise, disturbance, and creating much dust and debris along our properties. Finally, having been told by the city worker last year that this would be the last of it, you have to understand our concerns now, finding out that yet another rezoning and now a new development is coming our way. This is not just any development, but indeed an NB housing project. Our house has been here since 1993, and we have worked really hard at beautifying our home and our property and take much pride in our area. This project is causing us much stress and concern. Not only do we feel that our property values will go down, but we fear for what type of tenants will habitat these dwellings. Will this development bring drugs and criminal activities to what has been thus far a peaceful and quiet place to live? We have absolutely no judgment of people earning less money, but we hope you will consider our thoughts and concerns when perhaps you define, along with the province, what type of tenants may occupy this new NB housing dwelling. Would you please consider contacting me on perhaps sending me more info or pictures to help us and our neighbors be at ease? Thank you very much, Lisa Landry. My name is Lisa Martin. I work in Dorchester Penitentiary as a correctional officer. I purchased 645 Melanson as a place where I would like to retire. What was so appealing in this area was the bike trails, walking trails, and scenery of the neighborhood, and I felt safe. I strongly oppose for this development project proposed on land located on Melanson Road PID 00987594. I understand that this proposed application for public housing makes economically use of land and urban resources and has a positive effect on community development, community employment. Constructing can be benefit to local construction and maintenance business and boosting employment opportunities. This is a positive effect on local businesses due to indirect spending in the community. In saying this, I would argue that the increased resource spending isn't the problem. It's the quality of people that will come in as a result of building a public housing unit. Some would say that potential neighbors fear public housing because of the lost property value, as there is not yet benefits and stigma that comes with it. Even though the community may profit from the new real estate and increased jobs, there is still the fear that residents could be ex-convicts or other undesirable sorts who impact the quality of life of their neighbors. I am sure there are reports on public housing that would have evidence that there is a strong association between public housing, higher crime rates, negative health, violence, and the impact it would have on the community. Please understand, I work in a prison and I deal with this often. Coming home in a safe place, safe haven, my safe haven. Knowing what can possibly be proposed at PID 00987594 does not make me feel safe. These are just my opinion. Thank you for your time. Lisa Martin. Third, I am opposing the construction of new building on Melanson Road, PID 00987594. It's the only land except Melanson Borg area left on our street. Instead, I would put trees or anything else to stop the high traffic of cars going almost 100 kilometers an hour, or even a stoplight on Melanson and Central. If we lose this position and they do the buildings, could they use the street on Central that connect to that land? It would be less dangerous. And put trees for privacy so we don't see the building as much. Marie-Céline Kenny. Quatrième, s'il vous plaît, sauvez nos arbres. La ville de Dieppe a besoin d'un plan.
Please save our trees. Dieppe needs a plan to save our trees. We have a health system that we should continue to develop, but we have to save our trees. There is new construction, and we have buffers of 30 meters between properties, but it's not enough. Don't ruin our neighborhoods by cutting trees in the future.
Est-ce qu'il y aurait d'autres questions de la part des gens
Is there any question from the people? Here is your opportunity. Yes, I'm Guy Doucette. I live not far from that construction in question. I was somewhat shocked at first because, according to the diagram we received, the red spot was on the line. It's true that I'm not interested in having NB housing in my backyard, but there again, whatever we do, there should not be any tree cutting, because finally, that's the only buffer that we have between that property and our property. But of course, NB housing would not be my first choice to have something there if it was only to plant trees. Maybe we could move that NB housing around Acadie, Gauvin, where there's already available properties. And when they have MDU, multi-dwelling units, since Melanson Street is mostly houses or duplex at worst, it's not big apartment blocks. And the other thing that concerns me is the noise on Central Street. I don't know if it's because the police don't know how to do their job or because the laws in the city of Dieppe are not there to protect us. But it seems, especially in the summer, even the whole winter, cars go in front of the house. And as soon as they're in front of the house, they gear down, if you wish, and you just hear noise. Well, there's no muffler. It's just a noise, real noise. It's as if they want to make as much noise as possible with Hanby housing. I don't know what kind of cars or vehicles these people will have, but it will only worsen the thing. And that's the other thing. Somebody mentioned there's noise. I don't know if he was making relation to the trees that go by in our neighborhood, but if we could reduce the noise, it would be appreciated. Anyway, I'm opposed to the plan. I'm opposed to any wood cutting there would be in that area. The last thing on Central Street, I planted a tree in front of my house. And 2 years later, the city of Dieppe built a sidewalk and they put the hydro lines on top of my tree. So my tree is really gone. So it's just to say that I'm against the plan. There might be a few points that have to be clarified concerning the kind of building that it consists of, and is to replace something that is that already exists elsewhere. And when we talk about the people that are there, what I've heard so far is really a lack of information. So maybe a bit of clarification. Well, I can do it. It's information that was missed because I was bothered. But what I want to say is the relocation of building at 283 on Gauvin here. It's a home that keeps senior citizens that, as you know, our downtown is revitalizing in some way and pressure and development of 10 units was to be relocated. The building was aging. But number two is with the partnership that we have with Housing New-Brunswick. The people who live at 283 Gauvin Road are, for most of them, low income people or people with fixed income that are subsidized by the province, and third aid or old age people. I don't know if it clarifies a little bit, but as for the building per se, we have different kinds of building except Melanson Road. As you know, it's a main artery. It's not a local street, and we have a building of 12 units that is getting built right down down the road, and we have an arena where there's a lot of traffic. We talk about 10 units only. And as you can see, the parking in the back, the ratio is 2 for 1. And for us, the intention is not to connect on Central, but rather for people who will use Central. So I don't know if it can clarify a little bit the lacking information that I did not inform the people as to what the building was all about and the kind of people who live in the building. What we have to understand as planners, we regulate the use. We don't regulate the people who live inside the buildings. That's not our role. As you know, the city of Dieppe is an inclusive city. So there are needs, and it's really a relocation of a building that exists. It's not a new one. Your worship, thank you.
Aussi, j'ajouterais qu'on va
I would
s'assurer
like
que
to add, we'll
concernant
make sure that the trees are preserved and there's
couper des
a
arbres,
water stream right in front. We have a minimum we cannot touch.
de 15 mètres,
It's a distance of 15 meters on each
donc
side.
on a encore de sécurité
So
additionnelle
we still have an
dans le
additional safety to make sure the trees are maintained to respect
à l'arrière de leur
the
cours.
people who are behind their yard on Central. I think it's important to note that the people who will be relocated are people of a certain age. In some cases, there might be two. When I look at who's on Gauvin, there might be 2 cars out of the number of persons who live there. So in some cases, there are people who have a physical handicap, who are normally not mental but physical, and they are of an advanced age. I know people who have lived there about 12 years on Gauvin Road, but as it was mentioned, that building is getting old. We've waited a long time to move it from that location to favor the downtown. So I think it'll be rebuilding, but we want to make sure everybody understands we've had problems with cases that we've moved. Yes, house, old bungalow that were on Gauvin Road that we moved elsewhere, and I'll finish one side before I jump to the next one. We've had problems with that by moving people in other ward, but very little, very few. I think we had one among the 18 houses that we've moved over the years in the last 20 years, essentially. There's one group of person with whom we had problems, and the ICMP took care of that problem, but and NB housing also. For us, it's important not to create a ghetto. In today's world, things have changed. 30, 40 years ago, there's a kind of ghetto that was placed there behind all houses that were on Champlain. There wasn't a lot of activity going on. And that ghetto, obviously, one feeds the other. And it's one of the things that by working with the government, New-Brunswick government, by relocating people in different part of the municipality, it changed a lot the future of these people and their children. That is a building, once again, of the province with a different location for older people who can't work. They have a fixed salary. By memory, I don't remember that we ever had problems with these people. I know a few persons who lived there for 15 years or more. In some cases, they died there for clarification purpose. Other question on or comments on that file, please, please.
Bonsoir, mon nom c'est
Good
Michel Roussel.
evening. I'm Emilien
J'habite à
Roussel.
Saint-Lonsens.
I live on
Je suis
Melanson
vraiment
Road.
de ça. Je
I want to talk about that. If I had not gone to visit my neighbor who's 2 houses from me, I would have known about this. I got there one night. They said, "Did you get a paper in the mail for the block that they're building?" I said, "No, I didn't receive it." And I'm only 2 houses from him, and I received nothing. Well, 100 meters. I know we have a rule, a regulations that we notify people 100 meters around, and maybe they miss you. I don't know. There's often things that happen in Dieppe. I don't know about it. I don't know if there is a way of knowing it. They talk about things. Well, check your address, 577 Melanson Road. I received mail about Dieppe. Normally, I hear about things that happened before, but in this specific case of rezoning, we must contact the people according to our municipal practice. It's not a law. Is it a law? It's a planning law. A distance of 100 meters from the construction, we have notified people. We prepare a letter to inform the people, and it's delivered directly by our employees. We'll check. Maybe explain the procedure.
Welcome back. Thank you. Again, I have a vested interest. I've introduced myself. I shan't do so again, but I shall again thank you for the opportunity. I live on Nugent, and I would like to ask Mr. Frenet 2 questions after the presentation. The trees that are clearly marked in the photograph, I live adjacent to the L section, shall we say, which is bordering on Nugent Street. Is there any intention to have any of those trees removed? If you look at your diagram, which I don't have to the front of me, but it is some distance from the red rectangle that is marked. So is there any intention to take any of the trees down in that area?
Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna go back.
Okay.
But you can ask your second question.
Thank you. My second question is, although I appreciate having received the letter in the mail, I had no time to prepare an objection because I didn't know what I was objecting to. Now I know that it's a single-story dwelling, 10 units. I can understand the reasoning behind it. But I was in no way able to submit a written objection to something I had no idea of what in fact it entailed. I'm asking, is it not possible that if a project of this nature is planned and residents' objections or support is being sought, could we not have an information package that would come with that letter to say this is what's planned and maybe give us a month? And also, what are our legal rights as residents? I don't know. I've never ever had cause to object to a development in the area. The areas have already been developed before I moved in, but since this is a virgin opportunity for me, I wouldn't want to waste it, and yet I didn't know how best to use it.
Don't blame you. Don't blame you one bit. So
Maybe I can
well,
explain,
I
yeah.
think Mr. Frenet can probably explain it better than I, but suffice to say that there is a process that he will describe, and it also involves citizens that are named to a what's it called, a CCU,
Specific region.
Planning Advisory Committee that gets involved. So it's a process that if you talk to the developers, they'll tell you it takes too long, but it's 4.5 month process from the time that they deposit a project to our planning group, which is comprised of what, 7, 8, 10 employees, something like that at this point.
All right,
6 in your crew. Anyway, I'll let him explain.
So as for the notice that we send in the mail, and you said, sir, that you did receive it. So I don't know if you have it with you tonight, but on the notice, there's supposed to be a number where you can call. So you can call my colleague, Alexandre Girard, and he can explain exactly what is the proposed project. Plus, you are able to come to the office and consult the bylaw that is proposed. So that information is sent to the neighbor in a rayon, in a region of 100 meters. As for monsieur, vous avez pas reçu, vous pouvez m'appeler demain, je peux vous donner mon numéro de téléphone. On a toute la liste
Call
des
me
gens.
tomorrow. We have the list of people we send the information to. We can check with the mail that it, and if there's a mistake, we apologize for it. And to come back to
On the second question, indeed. So basically, we did receive 4 letters from people who did receive the letter, and there was on the notice it explained where you have to send the information if you want to address the council also. So all the information should be there. I can double check on my laptop and show you the public notice that was sent. Again, and like I said, we try to be as much transparent as possible. And that's why we said, we say in the notice who's the key person that you have to contact at the city, his name and the phone number. Plus, like I said, we always come back to neighbors who would like to talk. And I think we have Monsieur Doucette, who probably did call Alexandre after you received the letter. Correct? Thank you. And as for the first question was regarding the trees. So that buffer area should remain based on, like I said, on the site plan. As you can see, this piece of land here. I'm just going to show you. So here, as you can see, the trees line, plus it should come in around here. I don't see it. Okay, on le voit là, je le vois pas là. Okay.
Pretty close.
So on Nugent, you're probably here.
Just to the left of that, but yes, in that region,
In this region here.
between the circle and the arrowhead.
So right here.
That's it.
So as you can see, I don't have and that's something that I can basically, I don't know, on a thin mesure ici, but it's more than 30 meters. So that's what we're proposing to conserve. Yeah. Welcome.
Proposing to conserve the whole L-shaped piece of the property, all the trees.
The said project that we have right now, it's basically what on le voit plus.
En gris.
Okay, so basically, as you can see, the site plan here. So that's basically the site plan that we need to build on it, and the remaining it's still kept as natural.
In that square, I'd like to make a proposal that they.
For translation purposes.
Oui, est-ce que vous pouvez vous avancer au micro pour...
can you come forward for translation because
We're live and in color, so we want to make sure everybody understands what's going on and happening.
OK. Mon nom, c'est Jeff Couture.
Bonjour.
Je suis voisin.
Jeff,
Oui.
I'm a neighbor of him, and if we try to brighten the neighborhood, Saint-Anselme, the wood lot is part of Saint-Anselme, and I would like to see it being spared. If we have a trail from Central to the main trail around the arena, it would improve. We would have a nice trail. And before, when we moved there 30 years ago, there was already a trail there. It was a skidoo trail. But now it would be nice to see a trail. Yes? Question of knowing who owned the property, if I understand correctly, would be a trail at this height here. here. We would avoid the tree cutting. Well, tonight, the case that we are discussing is this location here. And I don't want to go ahead because it's another service of municipality that are responsible for the trail, but they have a core plan and they will develop a master plan. The trails are already decided where they will be, but it's being studied to see what is the benefit, if it's a bit, what is the benefit for the end of the rezoning that we have here tonight. Is a question of that plan. We don't bring it a question of a trail. Being democratic, we give you the opportunity to comment. There are things, there's always good things that come out of it when we discuss. Yes, it doesn't cost more. Thank you, you said again. I'm a little confused from what Mr. Fernandez is saying. It's not his fault, it's probably my fault. But on one hand, he says that the square, the red square, is what they need. But on the other side, he says we will preserve trees in that square. What will they preserve the tree? Because I don't have a tree. To promise that we won't cut any tree, I'm not able to promise it. But if you look, I wish you would look there again in red. Let's hope that this section here, it is overlap. I'll show you what it represents. The other one is better. There. This is what it represents. To promise that there will be no trees cut. I can't promise that. Maybe some are better to be cut. I mean, I'd rather what we want to do is keep the maximum of them. Councillor Boutier, thank you, Your Worship. 2 points. The first one is normally when we have letters that we receive, we contact the people, and I would like to know, did we contact them, and what would the result when we explain what the problem was? I can explain. It's not a procedure when we receive comments from the people because the people, it's being read to it's to be read. A lady asked that we communicate with her. We'll be able to give her a copy of the presentation because it's made public today. Generally speaking, the people call us because, like I say, on the notice, we encourage people if they have any additional questions to call us. Some people did call us. Monsieur Doucette spoke with my colleague, Monsieur Girard. We had other calls also who submitted, and during that call, it was mentioned that it's important for them to send the comments to the clerk's office so that the clerk might read the objection. So it's mostly calls that we receive. And tonight we have one request that asks that we call her back to have information. Well, the information is being made public on the website. So I think it was Mrs. Martin will be able to communicate with her in the maybe to tomorrow. Second point is transparency, as you said. From what I understood, what we sent to our resident is a brief description, and it's a map, and we say it's a rezoning. We don't explain even a picture of the project. No, but we want to have necessary resources that could be put on the website. In the trips that I made to Vancouver, they put a sign on the land and they have a rendering of what the building would look like, the number of units, the number of parking. And these are resources we don't have here. But on the other hand, we are available to present as much information. We must know that some information remain confidential until the public, but people can consult the bylaw and we explained to them we've always been transparent. I was wondering if there was a way we could improve that letter to the citizens. And
Ouais, parce qu'on veut, si je
thank
peux
you.
juste me permettre,
If
des
I
informations
maybe
qu'on a
allow
données,
more
des
information we give
représentations
sometimes
qui
can help, but more
peuvent
information
faire
bring
confusion
more
aussi.
confusion
On essaie
also.
d'éviter le
And
moins,
we try
on
to
essaie
be
d'éviter le moins d'heures possible
we
pour
try to
les gens,
cut
puis aussi
as
pour les
little trees as
usagers de
possible, to
ces
use as
systèmes-là.
little paper as
Et la
possible.
même
And
chose
that's why we only have
ça pourrait
a
devenir un
letter
peu
with a cover. It could become very onerous. But we have to understand that there are great impacts. I no, I see an opportunity of continued improvement, a good project of improvement for the planning team.
on serait même disposé, là, parce
We
qu'il y a
would
rien qui nous
be
interdit de faire un
available to some
rapport avec le staff
municipalities,
aussi sur le site web.
but the
Ça, c'est
staff
juste
on the
parce qu'il y a
website, everything is on the website. We have that
il y a
information.
pas de problème avec ça.
We
S'il y a
don't
des
have any
ressources,
problem with that.
bien entendu.
If we have the resources, sometimes it doesn't take resources to correct that one because
Peut être désaccord.
for a guy of continued improvement, it's better practice or better scenario that would facilitate the job. But when need exists, we have to act. Monsieur Thibodeau, your worship, I have the same question as Mrs. Deboutier, but there is one answer that I found when you say we receive letters and one asks that we communicate with her. It seems that the others who sent letters, we should communicate with them because there are objections that I heard. I think that if people knew what is the project and they would have a better description of the project, maybe they would not be opposed to it necessarily. I would suggest that we should talk to all those who bother to send us objections or letter. We should talk to them
Je peux juste
also.
ajouter
Maybe I
si
can add
un
on
des gens
that
nous ont
when
appelés,
we
nous
have
a
people who
expliqué
call
que
us and we
malgré
explain and we
l'information qu'on
said,
nous a donnée, ils voulaient
in
quand même
spite of the information we give, they wanted to share the
qu'ils étaient
information.
contre le projet.
They were
Et
against the
malgré
project
l'information
in
que
spite of the
dans ce cas-ci,
information we
on
gave
les a
them. So
réinvités
that's
à
why we
communiquer parce
invited
que
them
nous,
to
c'est nous
write
qui prenons la décision finale,
because
puis
we
c'est vraiment
don't
le
make
conseil
the
municipal.
final decision.
C'est
That
lui qui reçoit les
city
messages.
council is
Si
for. It's
l'information a
important
été
that you receive the information.
questionnée,
If
on a,
information was given,
on a même reçu
we even
un
received
commentaire
one
aujourd'hui
comment today
qui dépassait le délai, mais on l'a quand même
that was
accepté
beyond the delay,
pour la question
but we accepted it for the question of the
on
trees.
l'a reçu cet
But
après-midi au
we
bureau.
received it
Puis
this
le
afternoon.
processus légal, c'est pas
And the
c'est
legal
incontestement pas
process,
qu'il y a un
there
processus
is a
légal
reason why
devant
there
nous
is.
ici. C'est
Uh,
justement pas de déroger au
it's
processus parce que
not
ça pourrait aller tout bord puis tout
to
croche.
go against the process because it could really
Je peux dire
go
aussi qu'il y a bien des projets, puis c'est la même chose
sideways. I
avec
can tell you a lot of
les
projects.
nouveaux
Same thing
projets.
with variances. We send letters to the neighbors. We send several.
Ça
Sometimes
peut
we have three or four
des
persons
fois plus, des fois moins.
who are
C'est
interested.
pas tous les gens
Sometimes
qui
more,
reçoivent
sometimes
les
less. But
messages
it's not
électroniques
everybody that would call us
suite
following
au fait qu'ils reçoivent une lettre
the
par
fact
email.
that they receive a letter in the mail. Thank you. Thank you. I don't see anyone else unless there's someone else in the crowd. If not, we will close the discussion for the time and we'll continue with the meeting. Thank you, Monsieur Frenet.
Prochain aussi.
Yes, there's a second public hearing. 7.3 Amendment of the Municipal Plan Zoning Bylaw on the pins 73942, a portion of Gillespie Street from Mrs. Janet Gillespie. So for this presentation, we've already had a public hearing. This is a public hearing. The plan of the presentation, we can go with the deadline, including the proposed amendment to the bylaw Z9 and Z10. So on the 24th of January 2022, we undertook the process of amendment, but was presented to council. And on February 14th, there was a public presentation to amend the affectation map tonight. It's a public hearing to amend the zoning code, and following that, on the 16th, we make a recommendation to the member of the planning negotiation so that they can continue with the process on the 29th, 22. So, localization of the project, we're at the height of Pointe au Renard. It's a property that gives on Gillespie Street.
La demande est de faire un projet de lotissement pour créer un deuxième lot. Il y a présentement un lot avec une construction résidentielle. La
A
demande
lot
d'avoir
with residential construction.
demande de lotir une portion de ce
But the
lot,
applicant
créer
wants
un
to
terrain à des fins
create another lot for residential purposes. That's in red.
Donc, les changements proposés
So the changes proposed are to amend the use of the land for green purposes and conservation for residential. And that's the map, usage map, and then as well to amend the zone for multi-family units. Like I spoke to my colleague, this had a conservation zonage, but for many years it had that conservation zoning, but it was on a private lot, and the site didn't seem to have conservation entities, and we looked to see if there were any marshes, and if and for the zonage we produced maps of flooding zones, and we have a map here that this lot is outside environmental characteristics. So we have the marsh.
La ligne, pas trop bon, mais la ligne violette est à peu près en ligne ici.
Violet line here. So this lot is outside the buffer zone of the marsh. And we have a map that shows the risks of a 100-year storm. So the whole of the lot is outside of the flooding zone. After that, and you received my colleague's report, so we recommend that the council follow the process to subdivide the lot to create a lot for a single-family dwelling. That's it, Your Worship. We haven't received any letters about that. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question about the trail. How close is it to this lot? I could check. The trail will be farther than where we have the houses already in the sector, but there are links a little bit everywhere. We have a section of the trail. Right here. And then it goes down here to continue. We're talking a lot about trees today. Are you going to cut trees over there? It's going to be close.
Je peux pas effacer cette ligne rouge-là parce que c'est la ligne.
I can't erase that line because it's the limit of the property. But if you look here at the trail, I can come back to you with that information. if you wish, and you can put conditions on it as well within your power. Do we have a law for trails, 3 meters? Well, this is on the city lot, so this project can't touch our trails, but is it outside the limits and are the trees? It's something we don't have any information on.
Question, Madame Leboutier.
Councillor Leboutier.
Monsieur le maire, ça a été un.
C'est un restant de.
Oh,
Merci.
sorry, that was the last one. Thank you.
Je vois pas d'autres questions.
No other questions. I have a question for Councillor Gadet. I just want to understand your intention. One, you want to know if there will be trees cut on the private property?
Mhm.
Where the lot is.
Puis, au niveau de la coupe d'arbres,
And for the tree cutting, I need to know because the conditions that you can impose on a private property. So I would like to know what your intentions are so that I have the right information. We have to share that information with the applicant as well. It's a good idea that we keep trees.
je vais sortir l'information, je vais vous la présenter.
I will get the information and present it to you.
L'information que vous voulez vraiment.
If you really want to impose conditions on a private lot, we have to know to be able to tell the applicant because she's not here tonight. She's here? Oh, yes. Right, excuse me. Mrs. Gillespie, I wanted to be transparent up to that point. So you understand?
So basically, what we're gonna do is just prepare another aerial photo of all the buffer that the municipality own. And we'll see what you have on your property, and we'll see if the council wants to add another buffer on your property. So that's
something that's normal that city council would tell a private person that you cannot cut down your trees. That's what I'm understanding tonight, that that's what people are saying.
yeah.
They're gonna give
It's
away our rights, cut our own tree on our own land.
yeah, well, depending on the bylaw that the council will pass in the future, but right now, no.
Today you can't tell me I can't cut a tree on my land, but that's
Well,
what you're proposing to do in the future.
Since it's a rezoning, the council can impose you some condition.
I mean, there's
But-
a lot of trees there, it wouldn't be an issue for me, but just listening to tonight and we thought that as a private owner of a piece of land, that someone's gonna tell me I can't cut a tree down.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
but most land is what, an acre or two, like, I'm just listening to you.
Yeah, but what I'll do, if you can tomorrow or this week, if you can call back Alexandre Girard, because I think you dealt with him, and I'm gonna talk to him tomorrow, just to explain exactly what his request.
Fences are on
Yeah.
this trail.
Mhm.
You know, so then.
Yeah, I think once we have the information and once we produce the map and all that, I don't see any issue, but at least it's
I'm just curious on how the process works, that someone.
yeah. But like I explained, when it's a rezoning, the council has the right to impose some condition. If the zoning with already been R1, it's not something that they could impose. Yeah, all right?
Monsieur Gadet.
Thank you, Mr. Now. It's not
Mr. Cadet.
trees, that's not the question. I just want to know where the trail is and in what the city owns, if there's trees left beside the trail, that's the question. I'm not
Trees are
saying,
mostly on my land, when you guys have your trail, you have both sides of the trail, and us, it's mostly just grass now, where we are.
anyway, I just want to see a view.
Yeah, and the view, it depends of the map also, sometimes it's
Of
from.
the age of the map, yeah.
Yeah, it's all, exactly.
Okay,
All right?
See?
merci. Y a pas d'autres questions?
Thank you. No other questions?
N'en vois pas. Alors, merci, Monsieur Frenette.
Thank you, Mr. Frenette.
Supplémentaire ce soir.
You're working overtime tonight.
Bien apprécié vos commentaires.
It's very much appreciated.
Public
Any questions from the public? None? We have a question?
Les
On
autos.
Central Street,
Le beau temps s'en vient.
we have good weather coming, and the small cars are coming out, the sports cars with the big exhaust systems. And they wake us up in the morning during the night. So I propose that we put a light that shows the speed between Clarence-Cormier and Barachois. And it would show the speed of the cars that are coming downhill. And I think it would help to slow down the cars. It works very well in Chartersville, and I think it would work on Central as well. I'm happy to hear it goes well on Chartersville. But I tell you, we have the same problem in Chartersville. Of course, it educates people, especially when you're going downhill. I think the city manager will have an opinion on that because he lives at the bottom and then they're going really fast and it's around a curve as well. Yes, we all hear them. It's a generalized problem, noise, and that's why we work with the RCMP. And they come sometimes. I don't schedule them, but there's a special team of highway patrol that comes every now and then, looks around the region and checks out catalytic converters and all that stuff. All the modified things that make noise. Sometimes they look like little scooters, but they make a whole lot of noise. But the reality is there. It's a problem. And often there are people that live on the street, and they're the guilty ones. And when you catch them for speeding, they live on that street often. But we still continue to work on it. We appreciate your comments. It's a great idea. And our engineering director noted it because it's under her responsibility. It works on Chartersville, but not always. It helped the situation a bit. The citizen who complained the most tells us that it's improved a lot. Thank you and have a good evening. Item number 9, adoption of minutes of the last meeting. Mover, Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. For the question. No questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Adopted as presented. Now we're at item number 10.1. Mr. Villarson. Thank you, Your Worship. For this file, the City of Dieppe names are represented for the municipality on the board of directors of the Greater Moncton International Airport Authority Board of Directors in Dieppe for the Greater Moncton. So it's an extra term for Jean Corriveau until July 18th, 2024. Thank you for the reading of the resolution. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council appoints Jean Corriveau on the Greater Moncton International Airport Authority Board of Directors for another term ending on July 18th, 2024. I so move, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Gaudette. For the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. Now we're at 10.1.2. Yes, it was added to the agenda tonight. A financial agent from the uh, community, residents and businesses for contribution of $5,000 to send goods and equipment and medical products to Ukraine. The Association of Ukraine and people of the community are organizing themselves to help the situation of the war in Ukraine. So they've asked the municipality for this to ensure that the medication and products could be transported to Ukraine. For your consideration for the reading of the resolution. Councilor Béliveau. The council authorized a financial contribution of $5,000 to save Ukrainian lives, to send medical products for the frontline workers in Ukraine because of the invasion by Russia of Ukraine. And that should be on account 1, 2, 20, 28, 23, 10 from the general budget. Moved by Councilor Brideau, seconded by Councilor Leboutillier on the question. Councilor Godbout, thank you, Your Worship. I have a few questions. Firstly, for the city manager, I see this letter. Did the staff look at this request and prepare something for council? No, we've had a telephone call on Friday, so we've added it today to the agenda. We haven't done an exhaustive analysis, but for exceptional reasons, the municipality has already made this type of contribution, like for the Katrina storm in Louisiana, and as well for the situation in Haiti. So in the past, we have done this for exceptional circumstances. Thank you. My second question, in these precedents of exceptional situations, were contributions we're getting to organizations? Because I note here the request comes from an individual. So is it a general practice for the city with its methods of financial governance to give donations to individuals? What procedures are used usually? This time we haven't done an exhaustive follow up, but these people are with the Ukrainian Association of Greater Mountains, so communities in our region, but we'll ensure that when we make the contribution, it'll be credible and it will be done properly. We'll have all the validation in place. We'll ensure that we'll do a follow up. As I understood, that right now it's for social financing, this request. I didn't check that, but I just want to know if the council wants to do that contribution. We can do that. Well, for governance, for public funds, I hesitate voting in favor of proposition for a contribution to an individual and not an organization. We've received documents from organizations, and the Federation of Municipalities has a role as well. Of course, I suffer with these people as well, but I have challenges with the approaches sending a contribution to an individual rather than Red Cross, for instance, that we know that they're credible. So have we done this in the past? Were they to organizations or individuals in those cases? Katrina was many years ago, 2005. I think it was Red Cross at that time. Haiti, I don't have the information. We could surely make sure that once the request is made or submitted, the person sent this in the name of the association, the Ukrainian association, but maybe I made an error when I asked to be signed by the individual, but we can take care of this later. We could make to the Association of Greater Moncton. Perhaps we could amend the resolution, say that we could direct it to the association. I'd be much more comfortable with that, with public funds. There's nothing like a counselor that can be comforted. Yes, I would move that, Your Worship, that we amend the resolution saying that the contribution goes to the Association, Ukrainian Association of Greater Moncton. For the question. No questions. You have a question on this motion? It's the same thing Corinne mentioned. You support the same argument, but it's got nothing to do with the new motion. No. Any other questions? Councillor Brito on the motion? No. Therefore, now all those in favor, the amendment of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary? No. We have a mover already. We have to follow the procedure. This is concerning the amendment. Signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Amendment is accepted. So for the motion as amended, signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Accepted as amended. 10.2.1 Agreement with Dieppe Scouts. Yes, Your Worship, there's an agreement. It was terminated as 5-year agreement. The reason is that we're revising our policies. It will allow us to do a revision and have a new agreement, maybe modified. So these are for the conditions for 2022. For the reading of the resolution, Councillor Lanting. 10.2.1. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council accepts the revised agreement between the City of Dieppe and Scout the Dieppe Inc. for the period from January 1 to December 31, 2022. I so move. Moved by Councillor Lanting, seconded by Councillor Gadet. For the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. Now, with the appointment, Dieppe's Youth House, the municipality has 2 seats on the commission for Dieppe's Youth House. So we want to nominate Chantal Landry, representative of the community. So it's to officialize her nomination for a term of 2 years ending March 31st, 2024. Thank you. For the reading of the resolution, Councillor Boudreau, thank you. The council appoints Chantal Landry as a community representative on Dieppe's Youth House Board of Directors for a 2-year term commencing on April 1st, 2022 and ending March 31st, 2024. I so move. Moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon Roy. For the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. 10.3 Engineering. 10.3.1. So you remember, we have an infrastructure program approved by the federal government with a project engineering service, phase 2B, Aviation Avenue. This is to continue this phase with the services of Anglo Corporation at the cost of $185,000 and further expenditure defrayed from our budgets. So this consultant firm was retained from the beginning of the planification, Aviation Avenue. So the work is continuing for this phase. Thank you for the reading, Councillor Leboutier. Thank you, Your Worship. That council authorized Anglo Corp to undertake the engineering services for the project entitled Aviation Avenue Phase 2B and new water system at the cost of $185,000 plus HST, and further authorize expenditure be defrayed from accounts number 3335587665, General Capital Budget, Industrial Park Expansion, Aviation Phase 2B, and number 4390587665, Water and Sewer Capital Budget, Industrial Park Expansion, Aviation Phase 2. I so move. Moved by Councillor Leboutier, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. For the question. Councillor Godet. I have a question. Is this a property of the city and for the new water systems? On page 81. Everything that is in blue. Do we have to work on these lots? Mrs. Spencer. Good evening, Your Worship. Councillor Godet. The city does not own these lots, but in part, by the highway, we will have the authority from the Transportation Infrastructure Department. We met them, they know about this project, and then we have to come back on the south of the highway on Arsenault Street, which is already a public street, and we'll have to buy some lots a little bit lower for the alignment. That's why we want to conclude with the alignment and the acquisitions. Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. Item 10.4, Mr. Wilson. This is to recall that the councillor had a tender with the city town of Riverview, and we had an RFT. So you have before here, we received two proposals, and you have before you a 5-year contract for waste collection with Miller Waste Systems for an amount of $4,096,000. And here is a contract for 5 years with all elements of the collection of waste. And with this agreement, we could increase the term for 2 years if the service is good at that time. But for now, it's 5 years. So we want the approval this evening. Thank you for the reading of the resolution, Mr. Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. The council award the 5-year contract for the residential waste collection and disposal services for the municipal buildings waste collection and disposal services for the July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2027 period to the lowest bidder, Miller Waste Systems Inc., at the estimated cost of $4,096,000 plus HST and $265,000 plus HSD respectively, pursuant to which proposal dated February 17th, 2022, and authorize these expenditures be defrayed from account number 1242 692690, general operating budget, solid waste removal. I so move.
Proposé par le conseiller Brideau, appuyé par la conseillère Boudreau sur la question. Madame Leboutier sur la question.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le maire. Ben,
Thank you,
premièrement,
Your Worship. First of all,
belle initiative.
congratulations for the nice initiative. It's a good example of partnership. To at least the citizens are certainly lucky. But the question is one of interest and information. I was wondering, in the past, did we look at the efficiency, the advantage or disadvantage of hand truck and long-term benefit we could have to have such a system compared to the others? Was that ever done? Monsieur Bourque, Monsieur Bourque, please, good evening. Good evening. We don't have any deep analysis on that issue, but it's something to be discussed with the contractor for the collection. Some adjustment can always be brought, but it's that is being used. It's not always, but, but we understand that there are several municipalities elsewhere that use different system. And in this analysis, in this tender, it was not one of the elements, but it's something we can discuss. So now, if we approve tonight the contract, there won't be any changes the first year, but we are discussing with this commissioner for the collection to be done in the 5 or 7 following years. Thank you. In future years, I wish we would look to see if there is something to gain on a long term. At least that we would make that study to see if what we do is okay. If not, well, let's change. Let's see if there's any efficiencies elsewhere. Thank you, Michel Lantin. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm curious to know. I know it was proposed, but I think it's by the students from Mathieu Martin. Someone asked me the question. We talk about the environment costs, and it's a matter of knowing if the truck, if the garbage could be put on the same side of the road. I don't know what it would be involved, but they asked me the question if the city had ever considered that. I see some faces. Well, I can talk at length about that because my first mandate when I came back in 2012, it was raised that issue, and we dealt with that question, the kind of pushback that we've had from the citizens. I don't want my neighbor's garbage in my yard. That was one of them. The other thing about health and safety, the person, if we did not allow the workers had to cross the street to go and pick the garbage, it was a question of safety. I look at Monsieur Richard because I know he was involved also in the file at, at the time. I don't know if you have something else to add, Monsieur Richard. Well, on the file, we made an exercise of quite detailed participation of the citizens. We met the people on the street as worship. It was not conclusive. We had major objections, and the question of safety was for people, not only for people who collect garbage, but those who have to cross the street with the garbage. There were a lot of other aspects that were raised, but and the benefits, no, was uh, the economy, the savings. It was not as high as that we were looking at that time. Maybe it would be advantageous to look at electrical car for saving purpose. We had a good exercise in consulting the people. Okay. Well, question is that the fact that the people don't want the garbage on their side of the street is not a good excuse because you can alternate 1 year, but for the rest, I can see the question of safety and if it's not conclusive about the environment. Well, when the question is asked, I'll know what to answer. Thank you. And if some bags were rejected, who owned it? Yeah, you can see the kind of discussion that we've had in the past with that issue. We lived the wind recently with the winds that we've had recently. Yeah. Well, I for I live in a municipality for part of my life where we would put it at the road and a big truck would go by with mechanical arm to pick it up. I know the city of Moncton look at that possibility, and I think there was a question of savings. People must all have the same bag, and who buys the bag? And the other question that was raised on the discussion in Moncton is that it was less costly, especially that they're like us. They contract the majority of their work, but they have a certain part of the work is done by unionized employees. So it's a mix up in the three communities. That's why we chose. I'm not sure. I was not part of that decision making, but to share it with our friends from Review, obviously that must have been benefit for the contractor because it has a bigger volume. There's all kinds of good things that come out of it as far as improvement is concerned. Thank you for the question. Any more questions? I don't see any. We heard the resolution. This matter is just to vote on the question. Of those in favor, say aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. 10.4.2 Trailer Award. The program of municipal fleet, you have the purchase of three trucks, two motor wheels, and another one with four motor wheels, and it's a contract totalizing $45,295 and $97,644 in all. So it's for approval, but It's within our municipal fleet budget. Following the evaluation and budget, these three vehicles are represent a reduction as to the size of the truck. That's another positive element for the environment. So it's for your recommendation and consideration tonight. Thank you for the reading of the resolution. Monsieur Gaudette, that council grant the purchase of Chevrolet truck Silverado 1500 to two motor wheels and the purchase of two Chevrolet Silverado truck with four motor wheels for the service of public works to Lounsbury Automobile Limited at a cost of 45,254,044 plus HST and 97,644 plus HST respectively pursuant to the proposal dated January 16, 2022, and authorize these expenses to be taken from account 3-3-20-79 general development operation budget, and I so move. It's in February and not January. Okay, just to be sure we're all on the same wavelength. This being said, to support the motion, Mrs. Boudreau, on the question. Monsieur Thibodeau, you have a question? Thank you, Your Worship. I'm surprised that for something like this, that we only had one tender. According to the director, it's today's reality, the purchase of trucks. We think it may take 12 months before we receive them. That's the reality of the market. Thank you. We followed the procedure, the public tender with BO, and thank you. Other questions? All those in favor, say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Resolution is 10.4.2 is carried as presented. 10.5, planning and development. 10.5.1, the PAC recommendation on tentative plan, So evolution is for the placement and the fixing of the street. We make the recommendations for your consideration. For the reading of the resolution, Mrs. Godbout, Your Worship, I want to thank the PAC committee, and I would propose that to accept the PAC recommendation, the acceptation of subdivision Evolution, which is the widening of Evolution Street. I so move. Moved by Councillor Godbout, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. No question. All those in favor say aye. Can contrary minded nay. Carried as presented. Now we're at 11.1. Your Worship will know that Monsieur Lantaigne is leaving the room, having declared a potential conflict of interest. So, for the reading of a bylaw Z9 2017, amending the municipal plan for the first and followed by the second reading by title only. Monsieur Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw Z9 2017-6, an amendment amending the bylaw relative to the City of Dieppe Municipal Development Plan. I move it first reading by title only. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. On the question, Ms. Godbout. Thank you. I want to better understand, and my question is in the context of 11.1, 11.2, and 11.3 together, since they're close to one another. But I just want to understand the ideology behind the to amend the municipal plan, development plan? Would you put it in a bigger picture, the corridor, the ideology between changing a small piece of land with another small plane with different zoning and quite different? I want to understand in a bigger concept because we adopt the municipal plan with an ideology and then we change our mind. It's a good question. I was faster than you. Look, here we had a special case, I should say, and I think it was explained in the report. At the time, we would not have made the recommendation to allow multifamily dwelling, but it was kept nevertheless in the bylaw, in the zoning bylaw that we presently have. So following this, we saw a distinguish where land that was vocational because there was a church, and then we had a building of a commercial building where he set the plumbing and he wanted to set a multifamily dwelling. And we said that the vocation of the two use on the same property or even subdivide was different than the vocation of institutional zoning, in spite of the fact that multifamily in an institutional zone, we thought it was good to bring it to a kind of zoning that is more homogeneous with the multifamily in the territory of the municipality. So we're proposing to rezone the multifamily dwelling to an R3 location, and for what is the building, the commercial building, we want to make sure that the vocation be a commercial one. Because we had an institutional property first, and where there was a church, we have a building with with a shop. Since we want to make sure that we identify homogeneous with the same kind of use that we found elsewhere. Does it answer your question? Thank you. No other question? So, all those in favor of to accept in first reading Z9 2017, say aye. Could be reminded, say nay. Z9 2017 is adopted the first reading by title. Now we'll proceed with the second reading, once again by title only. Monsieur Thibodeau, can you wish bylaw number Z-9 2017-6, a bylaw to amend a bylaw related to the City of Dieppe Municipal Development Plan? I move it in second reading by title only. Moved by Brother Thibodeau and was supported by Mrs. Boudreau. Councilor Brideau, I'm sorry. So, on the question, once again, no other question? For the vote, all those in favor say aye. Contrary minded say nay. So bylaw Z9 2017 is adopted in second reading by title only. And this brings us to bylaw Z10 2021, amending the zoning bylaw once again, first and second reading of Z10 2021. Monsieur Brideau, please. Bylaw number Z10 2021-1, a bylaw amending the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw. I move it in first reading by title only. Thank you. Presented by title only in first reading for Z10 2021-1. All with the vote. Who's seconding, Monsieur Thibodeau? For the vote, all those in favor say aye. Could reminded say nay. The resolution is carried as presented. And the first reading of Z10 2021-1. Now for the second reading of the same bylaw Z10 of the year 2021-1. Once again, for the reading, Monsieur Brideau. Bylaw number Z10 2021-1, a bylaw amending the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw. I so move, Your Worship, in second reading. By title only. Once again, by title only. Move in second reading by Councillor Brideau. Seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. No question. All those in favor say aye. Can be reminded say nay. Carried as presented. Second reading by title only. That brings us to item 11.3 for the bylaw Z9 2017-7, a bylaw relating to the municipal development plan by reading by title only. First reading. Mrs. Boudreau, please. By title only. Thank you, Worship. Bylaw number Z-9 2017-7, a bylaw to amend the bylaw relating to the City of Dieppe Municipal Development Bylaw. I so move. Move in first reading by Councillor Woodrow, seconded by Councillor Gwinnett. On the question. No question. All those in favor say aye. Can be reminded nay. Resolution is for the bylaw Z9 2017 Z9 2017-7 is adopted the first reading, and now we'll proceed with the reading. Second reading, once again by title only. Ms. Boudreau, please. Thank you, Worship. Bylaw number Z-9 2017-7. A bylaw to amend the bylaw relating to the Dieppe City of Dieppe Municipal Development Plan. As all move. Move second reading by title only. Mrs. Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Gwinnett. On the question. No question. All those in favor say aye. Contrary minded nay. Excuse me. Bylaw Z10 2021 amending the development plan is adopted in second reading by title only. It brings us to notice of 11. Sorry, I jumped over 11.4. Yes. Thank you. Z10 first reading. Once again, Ms. Boudreau. Thank you, Worship. Bylaw number Z-10 2021-2. A bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw. So move in first reading. Moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Boutier. So, on a question. No question. All those in favor say aye. Can reminded say nay. Carried. Z10 2021 is adopted first reading. We proceed with second reading. Ms. Boudreau. Thank you. Bylaw number Z-10 2021-2. Bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw. I so move. Moved by Councillor Boudreau. Seconded by Councillor Laboutier. Second reading Z10 2021. All those in favor say aye. And reminded nay. Carried as presented.
Merci bien.
Thank
Et
you.
là, ça nous amène
Now that brings us to notice of motion.
pas de motion.
There's none.
Ça nous amène à
It brings us to
déclaration
inquiries and announcement by members of council. And I think that I start with Monsieur Lantin. We're given the chance to take his breath. And you've had your 5 seconds. Now you can have your 4 minutes. Thank you, Your Worship. 3 minutes, 55 seconds. I have nothing to say tonight, if not to wish you a good evening. Thank you. Mrs.
Madame Godbout.
Ms. Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. There are two issues to, but I want to thank residents who came to participate in our meeting and show their opinion as to the importance of trees. Your presence brings some values and help us to favor being a better idea of a natural like ours and urban forests.
I think tonight you were in fact preaching to the choir a little bit for some of us. You asked how we could turn back time. I certainly heard the suggestions of planting more trees, prevent future events, investing our walking trails, and it's certainly part of why I ran for city council, because I thought we could build on what was already clearly being built here in the city. Alors notre ville avait déjà commencé ce travail et puis je m'engageais à
We
continuer.
had already started, and I committed myself to continue the work. I've retained that the trails are natural and that they be protected by bylaw to protect the meters on each side is important, and that the trails should be developed. And I heard that it's part of our recreational plan, and also it's recognized. I heard the responsibility of the developer to plant on a temporary basis, waiting for the bylaw. I retain that, and the idea is underused by citizens. These are all good ideas that I heard tonight, and I am very grateful.
Who rallied the people to attend today. I think that's also a key role that citizens can play in making a difference. Alors, merci beaucoup à ces gens-là. Mon
Thank
deuxième.
you, these people. My second point tonight is I want to have follow up on something that we discussed on September the 20th on the Native Day about reconciliation. I have a question, a reflection. I don't need an answer tonight. I just want to ask two things. I would like to know what are the process that the city have taken and municipality that we've taken so far to make the process of reconciliation go forward and improve the cultural competency of our citizens and employees. I think it's an effort we can make for our employees, including the councillors. And I raised the question because we don't recognize native territory before a meeting, and it's a tradition that is happening more and more. It's a sign of respect. What we have exchanged with the native people, it's sensitized. I raise it because we're presenting something that requires an interaction, a collaboration, and more closer with native people. It would be one way to make sure that when we establish partnership, it's well received, and it's what it started on right footing. I raised the issue as being something that we should bring some reflection, how we can better reflect the recommendation of the Reconciliation Commission. Thank you. Thank you.
Non, trop tard. Monsieur
Great.
Thibodeau.
Monsieur Thibodeau. Your worship, I have nothing tonight. No question.
Étant donné le terrain
Considering
gagné, Monsieur Lantin, exceptionnellement,
Monsieur Lantin,
vous êtes
exceptionally,
en dette.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
your worship.
Juste, j'ai pensé
No,
avec
I thought after
dans
Ms.
les membres
Godbout
qui ont
talked,
été ici ce soir.
but people who were here tonight, one
C'est
thing
quelque
though,
chose que je vais mentionner
as I
localement
mentioned in my email, I wish we would look closely at the
respecter
possibility, I said the
la
possibility
plantation d'arbres
of having the
sur la
plantation
vallée
of
canal.
trees along the trail that goes along Tranquil Street. I wish we could look at that and if it's possible or not.
Merci.
That's all. Thank you. Thank
Monsieur
you,
Thibodeau.
Monsieur Thibodeau.
Rien ce soir, si j'ai bien compris.
Councillor Turgeon Roy. Thank you. Marc stole my idea. I want to thank the people that came to speak to us tonight with their ideas. And one lady said that there are losses and we can't recuperate them, but it would be good to have an action plan to see how we could replace those losses. And what's the feasibility of that? And as Councillor Lateng said, perhaps we could have a replantation of trees. That was my little grain of salt for tonight, and have a great week. Thank you. See you soon. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to add this evening. Have a great evening, everyone. Councillor Boudreau, I would like to thank as well the people that came tonight. It was enriching to hear you. And have a good week, everyone. Thank you. Councillor Leboutier, thank you, Your Worship. Thanks to all the citizens that came tonight. There were good ideas. And I will recommend now that we look at the next bylaw and we can work on our tree code and our bylaw Z10. We have a buffer zone and we could add specifically for our trails, if it's feasible, to look at a buffer zone, but we have an expert now. What would be his advice? Is 3 meters sufficient for a buffer zone? So we have to look at that. Is our buffer zone okay? Should we revisit that? So with this new bylaw, we should look at that this time and not wait until later. As well, bylaw Z10 is not on our website. There's just a map. Why is that? Is it being revised? We have a process in place to facilitate the use of our website. The bylaw is on the website, but it's difficult to find it. I agree. I looked and I couldn't see Z10 there anywhere. We're revisiting our website. We've been working on it for a year. We'll have a new launch of our website soon. We're very close. Can't tell you the date right now. Thank you. It's all for me tonight. Councillor Godet, thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank people that came tonight and spoke of the trees, and it's important that we widen the trails with trees and dogs on the trails. Last Friday, I was walking in the trails, and a lady in front of me was walking, and there was mud everywhere. And a dog ran after this lady, and the dog jumped on her, and she froze. And the owner of the dog didn't stop him. And I walk a lot in the trails. It happened to me a few times, but I'm not afraid of dogs. But for a person who's afraid, the people of all ages work there, young children and older people, and we've got signs everywhere. Maybe we need bigger ones. I don't know what the answer is, but it could be dangerous. It is not pleasant when a dog is full of mud, jumps on you. There was no leash. And I went to see again tonight, and we have signs everywhere. I don't know what we can do, but it could be dangerous. People go there to have a nice walk. They don't want dogs jumping on top of them. So it happened last Friday, and it happened to me before that too. I don't know what we can do about that. Maybe we could find some ideas, Mr. Simon. Yes, we have a bylaw on dog control. We can make complaints, and we talk about dangerous dogs too, who bite or try to bite. And people will contact the bylaw enforcement services, and now we have a bylaw that only treats with the dogs. And so if anybody has a problem like that, do not hesitate to contact the city. We'll refer you to the right people. It's a service that's 7 days a week, 24/7, and it's bilingual during office hours, on evenings and weekends. Perhaps services might only be in English, but generally people will organize themselves to be able to answer in French. So there's a bylaw for that, and we have fines and a whole system of processors in place respecting dogs. It's for the safety of people in general. Perhaps people in charge of that could go on the trails to see, because I see them every 2 days. They're not on leashes. Yes, it's part of the contract and their mandate. But I haven't seen if they've been going out there patrolling. But the patrols are part of this mandate, and visits in the houses too, to make sure that they have their tags. Thank you. Nothing comes to mind right now. So rather than invent something, no, seriously, the only comment I have, considering the discussions we had this evening, I also want to thank the citizens that came tonight. And I can assure you that my wish is that we do it once and well, so that we won't have to go back, because these subjects are heartbreaking for everybody, for people, employees, and the developers. So it's the type of discussion that we want to be frank, and we want to cover all aspects of the discussion, so we can do it once and do it well. So with that, have a good evening, everyone, and we'll be back next week.